Hey, welcome back to Budget for Life. I'm so glad you came back. Today, I want to talk to you about budgeting with a partner. Now, when you're budgeting by yourself, it's really easy to make those decisions about what you want to spend your money on, how much you want to save, what you're going to do with it. When you have a partner in this situation, it can become a little bit more complicated, shall we say. So let's talk about some of the things that we can consider or do when we start budgeting with a partner. The first thing you want to do is make sure you understand what money means to you. Some people want to always be earning more. They want the fancy lifestyle, they want the best of everything, all of that. If you are with a partner who doesn't want that, then you'll have to start making some decisions around that going forward. But on the other hand, you could be somebody who just wants to cover their costs. Everything's pretty basic. You're happy with that. And again, same thing, if you marry a partner who really wants that other part, you're going to have some very difficult discussions to make sure you can blend those two styles. It's not impossible, but it can be harder than if you're on the same track. In order to be able to do that though, you have to know what money means to you. And because money is out there all the time, it really drives a lot of things. Almost impossible to survive without money. If you don't understand what money means to you, it's really hard to have that conversation with another person. So before you even get to what are we going to do together, do some work, some reflection, look at your budget, look at where you're spending money. Are you happy? Where do you want to go from there? And see where you go. Okay, so that would be my first advice. Number two, always have the money conversation up front sooner rather than later. So don't wait until you're married to have the conversation about money, but I don't mean you have to have it on the first date either. Have that conversation a few months in when you're starting to make decisions. Anytime you're starting to get into decisions, you can start having those conversations. Start talking to your partner. Have discussions about, growing up, what was money to you? What were your experiences with money? How do you view money now? And start to get that sense of how people feel about money. Now, once you get to a more serious stage, whether it's with a romantic partner, or even if you're going to move in with a roommate or something like that, making sure that you're very clear on your money ahead of time is important. Now, some of these discussions on what your money means to you and such may not be important when you have a roommate, but making sure that it's very clear when things are getting paid, who's paying what, the percentages, that kind of thing, that piece of these discussions can apply. The rest of this, I'm really intending it more for you're having some sort of partnership longer term. But when we get to that, before you ever move in or move to that next serious level, you want to make some decisions around how you're going to manage that money together. And before you can get there, you have to know how much both partners are bringing into this scenario. So you don't want to have any secret accounts. You don't want to have secret stockpiles of money, secret debt. When you come to the table, you need to lay it all out, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that both partners can go in with a very clear idea of who is bringing what to the table. Making sure that you disclose all of the debt you have. If you are coming in with children or dependents from previous relationships, need to understand what your obligations are there, how much cash you have, what are your sources of income, that you can understand, again, what is out there. Now, that doesn't mean to say, as you start to move forward, that it always has to be all in together, but you need to make sure you're always having that clear picture of where you are as a couple. And so when you are as a couple, that dictates how you're going to manage things going forward. So when I talk about managing things going forward, after you've laid out what everybody has, you'll need to discuss what it is that you're going to do. So there are some very general accepted options. First option is the more traditional, all in. Everything goes into one account, one checking account, all payments, everything is made out of that account. Now, there is a lack of privacy for some people that would like that. It does work, That's the method I use in my personal life. It makes it easier so that we know that we're working towards all of our goals together. Now, in the scenario where you've got all the money, say, coming into one checking account and that type of thing, that doesn't mean that you only have a credit card in one person's name. You can still maintain credit instruments and continue to get credit in your own name. So maybe the cell phone bill is in your name, another utility bill is in the other person's name. You can also have those joint. But having some things on your own ensures that if anything were to happen, you are still protected in that you've continued to build up your own credit rating. So I have my own credit cards in my name, credit cards in his name, but we know exactly where they sit at all times. So in the all-in, easier to see all the money that you have, all the information. But like I mentioned earlier, there's a little bit of no privacy, which also means getting those surprises can be a little bit difficult. Second option is to do a percentage split on the bills and have a joint account that you use. So you input your money for the joint expenses, so everything you've determined is joint, and you each put a percentage in based off your own discussions. The key thing here is to make sure that that piece is fair. So a lot of times you'll see 50-50 is the split. We're going to split the joint expenses 50-50, but if you look at the total income and one person is earning 70% of that total income and the other person is earning 30%, when you do the 50-50 split of the household expenses, that becomes unfair for the person who's making 30% because more of their income is going to the joint, which leaves them less for their personal expenses. In that type of scenario, I'd really recommend that you do input that money as a percentage of the income as a whole. So in that scenario, 70% from one partner, 30% from the other partner, so that it's fair, so that they both have a similar leftover amount of money from a percentage perspective. In that scenario, I think the other thing that's really important here is those personal accounts. Yes, you can use those on your own. You don't have to disclose all the time, but I do think it's important for transparency and to make sure that things are going well, that you still share the information, say on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis, some basis that works for you, to say, hey, let's do a State of the Union address kind of deal of what is sitting in those accounts. Because I often hear stories and read about them online, also had this experience from different jobs I have done related to payroll, is that when you have those accounts that you don't have to disclose, somebody is squirreling away a lot of money that maybe could be used towards couple goals, or they are spending money and racking up debt, and it only comes to a head when things go wrong and the other spouse is caught unaware. I really would encourage in that scenario, when you do have those personal accounts, to have some way of recording that information together or sharing that information together. The other thing to consider in that scenario is that when you have separate accounts, is all of the joint expenses, including all of the longer term goals, when it's retirement, vacations, things like that. So don't just consider the joint expenses as in your day-to-day life, but what are those longer term couple goals that you have. The third scenario is that all of the finances are kept separate. You each maintain your money separately, and you make an agreement that one person is paying these bills, the other person is paying these bills. Still, again, using that percentage basis, and again, those comments from the previous one of the joint account, still making sure that they're fairly equally split. In this scenario, I really encourage you to have some sort of way that you meet quarterly, annually, to make sure you know where you both sit, because there is no visibility on the other side. And when you don't have that visibility, again, things can go off sideways. So make sure that you are checking in on that information. It's a little bit of a trust but verify situation. I don't think it's unreasonable. Again, your mileage may vary on that, but you want to protect yourself and make sure that you are working towards similar goals. And remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. Learning how you work together takes a long time. It takes a lot of effort, having a lot of conversations. So take that time. Talk about money on an ongoing basis. You never stop learning about each other. And let's continue to go. Being open about your money together will definitely help you get to where you want to go.